Good day, Wesley So chess fans. Today I'm gonna feature one of Wesley So's best games. Actually, this is the first one. Wesley So versus M. Prusikin. This is way back 2006. It's a classical French game in 30 moves wherein Wesley So was white and he won it in just 30 moves. It says here it's so creative. And I agree because when I saw this game here at chessgames.com, it was really so creative that you will see here that Wesley So made a long-term sacrifice, a sacrifice that is not immediately obvious as to its objective, the result that you want, which is an outright win, is not really that obvious because it took him a few I think a lot of moves to consider before the winning sacrifice could be converted. So let's proceed and look at that game. So it's a French defense classical Steinitz variation under the opening category of C14. It's at Badway C 2006. So here let's see how the game proceeded. E4 by Wesley, E6 by Michael, and then D4, D5, and it's knight C3 because this is a classical French. If bishop B4, that would be converted into a winner, but Michael proceeded with knight F6, inviting Wesley So to go for E5, but Wesley So has decided to go for this Steinitz variation with bishop G5, and then bishop E7, and then it's just now that Wesley proceeded with E5, and knight F, of course, knight F D7, and then bishop E7 by Wesley, exchanging the bishop, queen E7 by black. So we now have F4 here. Wesley is intending to make a kingside attack, and A6 by Michael. Others would prefer to go an immediate C5 in order to challenge the white center. So after A6, Wesley proceeded with knight F3, and then again B6. So I think the problem here is that black is not challenging, making an immediate challenge to the pawn center of white. And then queen D2 by Wesley, intending to proceed with castling later on, the long castling at the queen side, and then C5 by Michael. Look here, the knight is already at F3 for white, and the queen is at D2 before black challenged the king side of white, so it's a little bit delayed. And then knight D1 by Wesley. It's an anti-intuitive move here, but the logic here is that the knight retreat to D1 would bring the knight either to F2 or E3, helping in the king in a planned kingside attack. So castling by black. So C3 by white, reinforcing the central pawns, and then F6. So now Michael is trying to undermine the pawn center of white. And then we have here bishop D3. Okay, so as you can see, the pieces of white is poised to make a kingside attack. And then A5, another move which I think allowed white to slowly build up his position for an impending sacrifice later on. So castling by white. So I was wrong a while ago. Wesley does not intend to castle long because of his move to knight D1. And then bishop A6. So the idea, after all, by Michael is to exchange the white-colored bishop so that it would remove one of the attacking piece on his king side. E takes f6 by Wesley. So king f6, queen f6, and then knight g5. So here Wesley's pieces are already poised to attack the king side and the pawn at e6. g6 and knight e3 by Wesley, reinforcing his pieces to the king side. As you can see here, Wesley's pieces are well coordinated, while black still has an undeveloped knight on b8. So h5 by Michael, he wants to prevent knight to g4, and then rook a e1. Look how developed the pieces of white here. And then bishop d3, finally exchanging the white colored bishop. Queen d3 and c takes d4, and here, so c takes d4 by Michael here. So this is a critical position because for ordinary players, you would recapture on d4 with the pawn. However, Wesley has other plans here. He immediately sacrifices g5 knight on e6. Knight takes e6. And then of course, here, in order to, if you want to repute the sacrifice, just take the sacrificed piece, and that's what Michael wants here. Queen takes e6 and knight d5 by Wesley, attacking the black queen with the rook at e1. And so he is tempting black to take the knight at d5, because if not, he would be able to put his rook at e7 or his knight with a double attack on the king with a check, and then on g6, the pawn on g6. So what did Michael do here? So he refused to let go of his g6 pawn, because if queen takes d5, there would be a queen takes g6, a very powerful response, because next would be rook to e7, threatening check, or actually the checkmate is unstoppable at that point, because in order to do it, one has to give up the rook and the queen. So Michael just made a move that defended the g6 pawn. So queen f7. So for Wesley, rook e7, another very strong move, and then queen to f5. What Wesley did here is to ignore the offer to exchange queen, of course, because he has already sacrificed a piece, and he has to proceed with the attack with queen takes d4. Knight f6 by Michael here. It seems that he has parried the checkmate threat at g6, at g7. But what Wesley did is rook to e5, a very strong move there. And then queen d7, and then queen d3. So what would happen with queen d3 is that he's threatening to take the g6 pawn. For example, if knight takes d5, then queen g6, check. If king goes to h8, then we have rook takes h5, and then checkmate follows. However, if queen takes knight takes d5, and then queen takes g6 check, if Michael goes for queen g7, Wesley would just proceed with queen takes queen takes h5, and then if knight f6, he can go to queen f3, threatening to take on a8 and rook g5. So he's still ahead there because he threatens to make black queenless. So what happened here is, yeah, black took on d5, of course, with the knight, and then queen g6, and then that's what happened, what we are thinking. Queen g7, and then, oh no, he did not take on h5. Wesley has a better move there. So if the king goes to h file, of course there is rook takes h5, then black would have to give up the queen. And if here rook goes to f7, then queen takes d5 with the threat on a8. So the other option would be to parry the check with queen f7. So that's what Michael did. Queen f7, and then queen h6, threatening rook g5. So queen f6, then rook g5, check, king f7, and then queen h7, king e8, and then rook d5. Rook takes d5, and of course in this position black resigned because we have a unstoppable threat with rook e1. So this is one of the most beautiful game of Wesley So that I have shown here. This is just recently known to me. I have not known this game before because I have not been following the games of Wesley So during his younger years. But this is one of the best games I have seen him play. So thanks again for watching this Wesley So channel, and see you again in my next video.